Hello team, and welcome to yet another breaking news update with myself, Jonathan M.S. Pearce. This is a Ukraine war breaking news update, and I'm going to give you an update to an update. The incredible footage that I've shared with you previously and the incredible accounts of what the Ukrainians have achieved in terms of using what would be very short-range FPV, first-person view drones to destroy aircraft at 4 air bases simultaneously throughout Russia. We're hearing news that actually there's a 5th one that they were going for as well, but the truck blew up on the way. More details on that in a second. And there were claims of a nuclear submarine base being hit, but actually that was Olenya air base from a different direction. So again, a little bit more on that to come. This needs to be taken in combination with, I think, the railway infrastructure being targeted last night as well, and it needs to be understood in the context of the talks tomorrow in Istanbul. I think there's no coincidence that you have these big talks taking place between Ukraine and Russia in Turkey. This is a massive statement. This is a statement that Ukraine does hold cards. It's a long time in the making. What I'm going to tell you in this video is what happened, how it happened, and why it happened. Although it's still exceptionally early and there are still loads of details to be known, lots of emerging information, even as I record this. So as you can see on the screen at the moment, this is Belaya airbase in Irkutsk region. This one is 4,400 kilometers away from Ukraine. You also have this Belaya there with all sorts of smoke rising from the airfield. Absolutely incredible footage. You also have Olenya Air Base, which is 1,800 kilometers, and a couple of others as well. So the idea was that the claims were initially 40 plus aircraft were destroyed or damaged, mainly strategic bombers. There's a possibility that one was an AWACS plane and also cargo planes involved potentially as well. We shall see, but certainly a lot of damage. This is an incredibly successful day for the Ukrainians. As I shared with you earlier, there was this footage of FPV drones going over the top of burning planes looking for another target. SBU officials now say that this was a coordinated attack on 4 Russian airfields, Belaya, Dyagilevo, Olenya and Ivanovo. We now have a bit of imagery coming from Ivanovo. And it was actually an attack on 5 different air bases, but as mentioned, one didn't end up being a success. So here we have a potential 5th, which could really be a 6th, but it's not included in the plans that we have seen. And again, we'll come on to that. It's claimed that another airfield in the Moscow region was targeted, either Voskresensk, Severka airfield, or Aviat Center Voskresensk. Both are small local airstrips or training centers, and as far as known, do not host any significant Russian military aviation. Although if that smoke is coming from there, then that looks pretty significant, but I don't know. It needs further confirmation, says no report. So take that with a pinch of salt, like with this Norsk submarine base. That was a bit of pinch of salt, and it turns out that that was Olenya. So I mean, what we know so far is that and this includes this map here includes the Severomorsk main administrative base of the Russian Northern Fleet in the Murmansk region. That's submarine base, but that wasn't actually hit as far as I can work out. So Olenya, which is up here, and then we have over here in Irkutsk, the Belaya air base that was also targeted, and then Dyagilevo air base in Ryazan region, as well as the Ivanovo air base in the Ivanovo region. These two here. Really successful day for the Ukrainians. Okay, here is a plan, a picture of the plan as was photographed on Malyuk's table from the video that we saw here. He was a chap that was actually narrating with a pencil, I believe. So obviously in charge of this or something to do with this operation. Now, the air bases on his schematic, as the Americans like to say, the air bases were Olenya, Dyagilevo, Ivanovo, Belaya. Those are the ones we know were here. And then Ukrainka, which is in the Amur Oblast, 6,000 kilometers from Ukraine's border. And that would have been insane to have destroyed equipment there. But unfortunately, that one didn't succeed. Now, some of the footage coming out is absolutely, incredible to see. The clarity of some of the footage is also interesting. So what we understand is that these were FPV drones that were released from lorries that were parked up nearby. They came out of the roof of these containers on the back of these lorries and then hit the air bases, hit the aircraft. I don't know how they got the footage back, whether this is a kind of Starlink affair. I assume it would have to be relayed by satellite, because even if you have some kind of repeater in the containers, getting that signal all the way back to Ukraine, that's not going to happen without satellite help. So here you can see another drone surveying the damage done here, and we're going to talk about the damage in the Y section at the end of the video and kind of what it means. But you got huge billowing plumes of smoke coming from these airframes. I don't know if there was any infrastructure at the air bases that was struck as well, to therefore, I guess, prohibit the airbase from being used at all in terms of, the control tower, stuff like that. That would be nice. I think they were just going for these airframes. And as I say, I'll discuss that a little later. Here we have some more footage, lots of airframes here. And of course, what we see is going to be the bare minimum. It will be the conservative sort of battle damage assessment, what is visually seen. But it could be more. It might just be that is all that was damaged or destroyed, or it could be that much more was as well. I don't know if more footage will be forthcoming. Might well be, but incredible quality of footage that is available to see. And here the drone just very slowly lowers itself onto the wing of the plane here. I wonder whether they worked out what the weakest part of the plane, why here, I don't know, but that's where that drone has landed, and no doubt exploded. They do appear to be aiming for those wings. Many are in a similar sort of area. That's underneath that one. And then, this one approaches this plane, and then the plane suddenly has an explosion, so on and so forth. Okay, so that's what we've kind of seen. Ukrainian Security Service sources tell the Financial Times that the agency is conducting a large-scale special operation to destroy enemy bomber aircraft deep inside Russia. SBU drones are targeting aircraft that bomb Ukrainian cities every night, claiming that 40 have been hit plus. So this was kind of developing as you know, all of this footage people are finding, like myself, finding very, very interesting. Now, this is the only imagery I have of Ivanovo military airfield. Something looks like it has been hit there too, so that's potentially good news as well. Okay, this was a claim, the video on the left, lots of smoke rising. This was a claim that Severomorsk was struck, which is somewhat nearby to Olenya, and that houses nuclear submarines. I reported that as a potential in my breaking news video, initial one. This footage, many claim to be from Severomorsk, is actually from Olengorsk, so Olenya airbase, taken from the flats in Vysoky towards the airbase, says Tord R. Iverson. Thus, the statements made by Zata's Severomorsk officials that everything is quiet there do seem to be more credible now. So the Russians were claiming, hey, it's all quiet at this base, where people are claiming we have been hit. But actually, it's a view from the these flats over there towards the airbase over there by all accounts. Okay, so I could show you more burning things and imagery, but you get the picture. That was kind of what I did before. Let's move on to how it happened. Okay, SBU officials now say, or SPU, now say this was a coordinated attack on 4 Russian airfields, or actually 5. This was a hugely ambitious project. According to people familiar with the attack, codenamed Spiderweb, it was planned more than a year in advance and personally supervised by Zelensky. The attack used dozens of FPV drones armed with explosives that were smuggled into Russia. And the SBU chief Vasil Malyuk looks over a map of Russian targets in today's attack. And then they shared photos. We're going to look through those photos in a second. Let's just get some lowdown, a bit more detail here from Special Kherson Cat. So more information from the Ukrainian sources regarding this strike today, or these strikes. Quote, Ukraine's Security Service, ATPGEO, carried out this sabotage operation, which is considered one of the most damaging losses for Russia in terms of the cost and impact on its strategic nuclear forces. According to sources, 41 Russian aircraft, including strategic bombers and military air transport planes, were hit at 4 different bases. Part of the drones used autonomous target guidance, with results to be confirmed via satellite imagery. And I was thinking this would be the case. So they're not going to be controlled by people back in Ukraine. I wouldn't have thought. These would be taking off and then have a preset coordinate to fly to and then look autonomously for targets, something like that. So the SPU agent group covertly transported 150 small attack drones and 300 munitions into Russia. Out of these, 116 drones were launched. The drones were controlled via Russian telecommunications networks with automated guidance systems. Several mobile launch points were established near the bases of Russia's strategic aviation. The drones attacked from close range during daylight hours, deep behind Russian lines. Despite the presence of layered air defenses, SAM systems, electronic warfare, and armed patrols, the Russian military was caught off guard, having expected nighttime attacks by larger drones, not small quadcopters in broad daylight. The most successful strike occurred in the Olenya airbase, where 295 bombers were stationed. Several aircraft were completely destroyed after drones hit fully fueled tanks. Key results, billions of dollars in combat equipment destroyed, lots of strategic bombers that Russia can no longer replace. And that's the point I made in the first video. It's not the cost of these bombers to build, like, oh, they've lost $2 billion worth of equipment. Well, actually, that's kind of irrelevant. It's, can they build them at all? And if they can't build them, then it's a functional loss of this and the value to the Russians of these aircraft that can't be replaced. Or it would take them too long to build than to be kind of meaningfully useful. So this is an incredibly highly valuable attack, and this is a success for NATO. It's an absolutely bona fide, awesome success for NATO. Like, if the US aren't jumping up and down with joy, the Department of Defense there, then they haven't got their head screwed on. Ukraine has just, in one morning, incapacitated a huge proportion of the Russian strategic bomber fleet. This is so good. Not for Ukraine. Yes, it's good for Ukraine. Of course it's good for Ukraine. Not just for Ukraine, but for NATO. Unbelievable success. So when you get Americans going, oh, God, and Trump talking about like, oh, I can't afford, why are we giving all this money to Ukraine, blah, 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 blah. Ukraine are doing to Russia what the US have dreamed of doing for the last 70 years, but haven't had the ability to do it. Or the opportunity to do it. I've had the ability to do it, but not the opportunity. Ukraine are doing an amazing job on behalf of enemies of the Soviet Union, now the Russian Federation. So it's just that should not be underemphasized. If someone like Donald Trump is going to downplay like the amount of assistance Ukraine has received when this is the payback, this is a return on investment, then I'm going to get angry. Importantly, though, this hasn't come with American assistance, this particular project, which is fascinating in itself. So we'll get to that. Russia will now have to invest heavily in base security. Importantly, all SBU agents involved have safely returned to Ukraine, and there were no reported Ukrainian losses. This was a large-scale, high-tech operation with no known global precedent in terms of execution and effect. This is making history today. Now, Christopher Miller, to that last point I was making, or the point before, it would be unusual for Ukraine to have notified the White House of this operation, especially since it did not involve the use of any American or even Western long-range weapons. From what I know currently, says Miller of the Financial Times, it was planned and executed solely by Kyiv with domestic arms. Moreover, there are doubts in Kyiv that the Trump administration would have kept it under wraps, and concerns that the White House would have waved it off, even as Russian forces have conducted the biggest combined drone and missile attacks of the war in the past 2 weeks. Actually, in the past night, last night was the largest drone attack on Ukraine to date. So, administration sources told CBS News that the White House wasn't aware of today's large-scale drone attack by Ukraine on the Russian military aircraft, that it was coming. And that's the same with the attack on Moskva, on the Russian flagship vessel in the Black Sea. The Americans weren't told of that, and of the Kursk operation as well. Now, let's get on to some pictures. Chris Owicki, this is reportedly how the Ukrainian drones that have attacked Russian air bases today were delivered to the targets in false compartments built into the top of standard 20-foot intermodal cargo containers. Now, what I can tell you is that if you are seeing stuff like this, let's go back to this image as well. If you're seeing imagery like this and these pre-prepared photos coming out, you know that this is part of this is PR, or not part of it. You know, it's militarily. Most importantly, they have militarily screwed over the Russians, but they are going to make sure that everyone knows about this. This will be a PR win as well as a military win for the Ukrainians. So these are the containers, and you can see, I believe that will be solar panels on top that I presume would allow the these drones to be released from there, to take off from there. That's what they looked like before they were loaded onto a trailer. And so that is a couple of images there. There are a few more here. As you can see, that would be where some more drones would be, and they'd take off from. There you go. And here we have the drones that were used, not loaded with munitions there, of course. Max 25, I don't know if there's any extra information here. Operation was extremely complex from a logistical point of view. The SBU first transported drones into Russia and later into mobile wooden houses. Later on the territory of the Russian Federation, the drones were hidden under the roofs of the containers, which were already placed on trucks. At the right moment, the roofs of the houses or the containers were opened remotely, and the drones flew to hit the Russian bombers. Sources in the SBU emphasized that the people who took part in this historic operation, special operation, have been in Ukraine for a long time. Therefore, if Putin regime demonstratively detains someone, it will be another staging for the domestic audience. That's worth knowing, isn't it? And here is what supposedly one of the drones looks like when it's fully loaded, but I don't know if you could fit that into the compartments that are seen there. I think they'd sit too high. So I'm not too sure about that, about the provenance of this image. Reportedly what one of those Ukrainian drones looks like that target the Russian airbase today. I'm not too sure about that. Now, what's interesting here is, and I can't show you, his legs are there, but the driver of one of the trucks that launched Ukrainian FPV drones was found strangled in this image, in this video. I don't think that's going to have anything to do with the Ukrainians. Now, we do understand that some of these, one truck, as I'll show you in a second, was attacked by locals who were trying to stop this from happening. They could have taken it out on the drivers. I think the drivers were, kind of innocent bystanders, if you like. They were manipulated by the Ukrainians to drive these trucks to certain places at certain times, and then the rest was, I guess, fairly automated. Here is a drone flying from one of the trucks. This is just a regular FPV drone that you might see over the battlefield. I don't know if it's particularly specific in any way, other than it will be working autonomously using AI. There's your major difference. Ukrainian drones have been spotted reportedly in the skies over Ivanovo Airbase. So that is Ivanovo, sorry. So that was that fourth one that we didn't have too much imagery from. Home to Russia's 144th Airborne Early Warning Aviation Regiment. There are rumours which suggest an A-50 AWACS aircraft may have been struck, though that remains unconfirmed. That would, of course, be nice. They are expensive pieces of kit, very valuable pieces of kit. 2 of them were taken out previously, and then they kind of went missing as they were being very cautious. I think probably refurbishing other ones. They don't have too many of these, very valuable to the Russians. Now, I'm going to show you this video. This is fascinating. We're going to wait till about 20 seconds in to see it happen. So here is a Russian just filming what's going on from the side.
Вот. Там дым черный конетелится. Видишь, черный там раньше зашел, а сейчас вон облако пошло какое-то серое. Вот дела.
And then here it comes. The drone out to the top.
Откуда взлетает, ничего не понятно, блядь.
Flies off.
Вот он, клоун, блядь. Оба ни с того ни с сего, сука. Оба! Вот дела, блядь. Ёб твою мать, до чего техника дошла. А нахуя мы работаем?
So it looks like the drones didn't all come out at once in some kind of swarm, but possibly one after the other. Now, I guess the weakness of this happening means that if you were so inclined, you could climb up there and stop them from coming out. The problem would be these things are loaded with munitions, and as we've seen in so many times over the course of this war, people that try and bat away and hit drones like this end up being... Oh, there's another drone taking off there. So, you know, there seems to be sort of 40 seconds between each drone taking off. So that video shows you 2 drones taking off. But yeah, you wouldn't want to be batting those drones down or away or trying to stop them if you fancied living. I'd personally rather a local strategic bomb was blown up than I was blown up. So then we have this, a recap on the events by a local. Now, of course, we're going to have to rely on the subtitles here, so bear with me if they're a bit butchered. Okay, that crap is burning over there. The car was parked at the edge, damn it. From it, the drones took off. So car, I presume he means truck or lorry. From it, the drones took off, damn it. They dug in here right at this parking lot. There, I was filming 4 or 5 drones. First, they hit something, those panels, like solar ones or something. They were messing around with them, then just disappeared. I don't know what he means by they were messing with. Does he mean people? And I see 1 drone takes off, then a second, third, fourth, damn. And there's smoke. Looks like it's the airfield. There it is. Whoa, it's hitting hard. There's debris flying. I was just 2 cars away. Whoa, damn it. Look, pieces are flying. What a mess. Damn, bastards already made it to Siberia. Can you believe that? What the hell is this? That's it. Time to shut them down completely. What kind of nonsense is this? Great, huh? And I had just taken a drink, thinking I'd finally relax. Well, so much for that. He says, obviously, drink's never too far from anyone over there. And that's the end of what he says. So that was his account. Now, this one's interesting. So trucks from which the FPV drones were launched, supposedly in this film, after the final FPV drone launch, a self-destruct mechanism activated, apparently. I mean, I don't know whether that's definitely true, but that container is on fire. So that has happened. And then, of course, the video we've already seen of a couple of drones taken off from, I don't know if it's said container or a different one. Now, then we hear that local residents, and this looks like, I don't know if this is the same place. That truck looks similar. Yeah, it's the same truck. That's right. It's trying to piece this together. So I presume that's the same truck, or did they just use similar trucks? But either, so you've got a truck on the right hand side with people on top. I don't know if this other truck's been moved. I don't know if that is actually a different truck, just the same make and colour. Who knows? The claim here is local Russian residents were reportedly climbed up, as you can see here, on top of the containers on top of one of the trucks used to launch drones to the Russian airbases, attempting with bare hands, stones and sticks to prevent the drones from taking off. But of course, these are loaded with munitions, as I said before. That's going to be insanely dangerous. I don't know whether they stopped some of the drones taking off. I don't know whether that then ended it in a burning truck there. I don't know if this is the same place. It's hard to know. And then we have another truck allegedly involved in Operation Spiderweb. This is on the side of a road and it looks completely burnt out. I don't know if that was a truck that failed to get to where it's supposed to, or well, actually the truck has driven off and left that container there. So I don't know if that was a successful operation in terms of those containers, and then it self-destructed at the end to try and delete all evidence or make it very hard for investigators to find out the provenance of these containers and trucks and whatnot. But then we have this, and I'm pretty sure the weather looks very different. I think this is one could be, I don't know, it could be the same place, but the weather looks a bit different. And I think, no, the trees aren't next to it. So this is a different place. Okay, so this is a different place, similar sort of scenario. So what do we have here? One of the trucks involved in the operation against the Russian air bases. This is allegedly in the Amur region. So this is the 5th airbase, Ukrainka, as far as I understand it. Airbase that was supposed to be targeted, but this truck didn't make it. Some people thought it would be clever to stay near a burning truck with some not yet deployed drones. So possibly a malfunction here. Drone maybe blew up in situ and it stopped this from happening. Then people went to check out the truck, and then the truck, there's a massive explosion, or fairly sizable explosion at the end, while these guys are close. So you can imagine that the drones are in the top and one of those drones are exploded, but that could be the Ukrainka truck that failed to work as designed. So a shame for the Ukrainians in that respect. Here we've got example of, I don't know which truck these, this would be, and where we're at here. But there's more examples of, burning trucks on the road that appear to have been used. But I don't know whether they've successfully been used, and then there's smoke around. Just confusion there as far as I'm concerned. So yeah, various examples, all those 3 videos there together. So Defmon says there was a 5th target, but the truck supposedly never got there. I don't know, but I think these are different. These are all 3, I think, different trucks. But he claims Ukrainka airbase is what those trucks, or that truck was meant for. Okay, then moving on. So that's how it happened broadly. I mean, very broad brushstrokes. I don't know the finer details and the control of those drones and communication with those drones and how they got the footage back and all those kind of details. But you get the point. Grayskull says, 4D chess, reject a 30-day ceasefire and lose most of your strategic bombing fleet. So, okay, before we look at some of the battle damage assessment, what's going on here is a statement before the Istanbul talks where, the US keeps, downplaying Ukraine's position very publicly. Trump keeps saying that they've got no cards. And then, Ukraine keep amazing us with what they're able to do. They do have cards. This is a very good set of cards. This trick has won the hand for the time being. Now, I wonder, like I've said to you before, there, what I call the Putin paradox is that the better Ukraine do, the angrier Putin gets, and the more likely he is to do something mental. So something like this will make Putin spit with rage, and you can bet your bottom dollar tonight there is going to be some serious pushback for the Russians. But if they don't have much of their strategic bombing fleet to do a lot of this pushback, what are they going to do? We're going to see Oreshniks take off. But Ukraine surely are going to be second guessing stuff. And I wonder whether they've got drones targeted at the Oreshnik launch site. Who knows? But if I was to plan this operation, and supposedly it's a year and a half into planning, you'd be thinking, yeah, and then what? So what are Russia likely to do? And what are we going to do to mitigate their ability to do that? Now, Russia then might go into these negotiations just saying, right, screw you guys, nothing's going to happen. Now, would Trump then blame Ukraine for Russia walking away from those negotiations, even though Ukraine are doing a very clever military operation that actually benefits NATO and by extension the US? Will Trump hold that over Ukraine? Will he punish them for doing that because it ruins the talks? I don't know. What will Russia's reaction be? Will they try and downplay this, or will they go mental over it? But it's certainly embarrassing for the Russians, I would have thought. Now, as of 4:40 p.m., so that's going to be Russian time, so that's probably 2:40, an hour and a half ago. Open sources have visually confirmed 2 Tu-95MS destroyed, 2 Tu-95MS damaged, 1 AN-12 destroyed, that's at Olenya, and at Belaya Airbase, 3 Tu-95MS destroyed, 2 Tu-22M3, so damaged, and 2 Tu-22M3s damaged. 2 thanks for that. And then, of course, there are 2 other airports, possibly even a 5th airport. Although that 5th airport in Moscow region doesn't track with what was on Malyuk's plan there, so not really sure. But so far, some damage. The Ukrainians are claiming 40 plus damaged or destroyed. So there's a very big difference between what is claimed and what we know for sure, given what we've looked at on the various videos. And of course, those videos, as I mentioned earlier, are going to be the most conservative estimates. Massive SBU special operation to attack Russian strategic airfields. So now more than 10 aircraft have been visually confirmed to be destroyed or damaged. With lots of smoke coming off. So I imagine the other thing to think about is the number of plumes of smoke, broadly speaking, at these air bases from a distance are going to tell you they're going to indicate a burning plane, I presume, at each point. Now, in new videos, another Tu-95 has been added to the losses at Belaya airfield, according to Dnipro OSINT. At least 4 Tu-95s and 1 AN-12. But I don't know if that was included in that last count up. Now, this is important. In fact, this cannot be overstated, says this source. Total number of strategic bombers in Russia is approximately 118 units. Tu-95MS is around 47. Tu-160s, 15. Tu-22M3s, 56. But, and it's a very big but, many of these will not be operational. So considering that some of them are not operational and new ones are not being produced, strategic aviation is on the verge of extinction. This is such a strong blow to the Russian Federation that it is difficult to put into words. For Russia, the loss of one is a disaster, and today dozens have been destroyed or damaged. Are we waiting for official figures? The holiday continues. Honestly, this is a massive success for Ukraine and NATO. Again, I will say that. Rebar even, so the pro-Russian source says, as we've already said, the Tu-95 and Tu-22 strategic aviation aircraft have long been out of production. I mean, these have been around for decades and decades, these planes, right? Long out of production as well. And there's nothing to restore them with. Accordingly, these losses cannot be restored. So even Rebar is saying, effectively, this is a big problem. We've got a source here, a Russian source, says the airfields in Murmansk, Olenya and Irkutsk, Belaya, which are used for basing and servicing strategic aviation, were attacked. The FPV attack is coming from Russian territory. The SPU states that part of the large-scale Operation Spiderweb, 40 aircraft were destroyed or damaged, including Tu-95, Tu-22M3s and A-50, so that's an AWACS aircraft. It is very interesting why all our resources reported that over the last 2 weeks, the Russian armed forces have transferred about 40 Tu-22MZ, or I presume that's MS, long-range bombers to the Olenya airfield, as well as about 20% of all Tu-95MS aircraft in the country. This is the largest redeployment of strategic aviation since the beginning of the conflict. Sabotage, as we are now seeing in the airfields in Murmansk and Irkutsk, could only have been done by young and daring guys. We take off our hats to the enemy. What has been happening for the last 24 hours is effing crap. So this is like, respect guys, you've done us. That is a very successful, very daring operation. As Adam Kinzinger, the Republican or former Republican lawmaker, says, Trump, Ukraine has no cards. Ukraine destroys a third of Russia's bomber force. Trump, tumbleweed. This is, again, not just a military success, it's a PR success. It's a statement to the United States. It's a statement to Russia. And this should give, I mean, if I was an ally of Ukraine, I'd be buoyed by this. And that would then lead me on to wanting to support Ukraine even more, because I know that things can happen, that they can innovate and they can succeed. It's not just about pouring resources into, trying to plug the dam as it's cracking. Ukraine is showing that they can do stuff. The next step for Ukraine would be to absolutely hammer Shahed drone manufacturing. That would be what I would be doing, and the Oreshnik launch site. Basically, if they can not launch missiles and drones, then Ukraine can then concentrate more on what's going on directly on the battlefront. At the moment, there's worrying a lot about what's coming in and having to spend an awful lot of time either trying to take those Shahids down or having to pick up the pieces of having military targets struck consistently. This last 24 hours has done an awful lot to mitigate against that. Now it's about the Shahid drones. And, no cards. But Ukraine's once again proven that Russia can and must be defeated, forced into peace through strength. Today is yet another day of humiliation for Putin. Just like when the Moskva was destroyed, the Kerch bridge was hit. So that's today. That's the Moskva. That's the Kerch bridge. A massive success that was. I mean, look at that, just incredible. And the Kursk region was invaded. Those, interestingly, appear to be all things that Ukraine have done off their own back without telling, let alone asking for help from the US. Absolutely incredible. Putin, as always, will pretend that nothing happened and that the goals of the special military operation will be achieved. I don't think there will be any changes among the top commanders in the Russian army either, but without a doubt, the operation will be one of the decisive steps in this war. Absolutely incredible stuff. Now, just looking at the very latest on my threads here, there were a couple of things that I think that were worthy of mentioning. So much on this operation, but there's a few things up here that I thought could be interesting to mention. There were reports days ago, and this is referencing what was actually already been said, but Shashank Joshi from The Economist saying, reports days ago that Russia has been shuffling around strategic bombers, perhaps to obscure launch patterns. Quote, Olenya airbase in Russia's Murmansk region was hosting an unusually high concentration of strategic aircraft. And of course, that was hit today. Yeah, I don't know if there's too much else. Oh yeah, just this. Marshal Billingsley saying, it appears that Ukraine just destroyed around 30% or more of Russia's nuclear-capable strategic bombers. Of course, that's to be confirmed. Shouldn't be hard for Russia to comply with New START treaty limits now. So that's to talk about like nuclear treaties there. But again, this goes back to such a benefit to NATO to have the aviation nuclear carrying fleet be this badly degraded in just a matter of hours is stunning, absolutely stunning. So just to let you know that I have re-uploaded, well actually Benny Pie helped me there, my initial live breaking news update, because people don't watch the lives so much after they've gone live. So I just re-uploaded that as a pre-record. So you won't need to watch that if you've already seen it. And this will be a kind of an addendum to that. So hopefully giving you all the latest that you need in order to understand what has happened. Of course, there'll be much more information emerging with each passing hour and day. But thank you very much for getting your info from here. I really appreciate it. Take care, and I'll speak to you soon.